if I have trouble, like during, like maybe during the week when I'm praying about it or when I'm prepping, that I've noticed a pattern that, oh, it's always a struggle. And that's my clue. I've got to get breakthrough beforehand. And the Lord was reminding me about a Daniel Nash.
Welcome to the Spirit Centered Business Podcast, where we blend the spiritual with the practical for supernatural results. Now, here is your host, Bralynn Newby.
Welcome back to part 2 with Virginia Killingsworth. And in case you missed part 1, definitely do that. We were talking about the scalability of doing groups, and especially during this time of transition in the body of Christ, when we're searching for community, we're searching for people who get us, or people where we can explore and go deeper with God and walk the journey of kind of deconstructing the old wineskin and stepping into the new. So part 1 was really good. We went to the cosmos and back, didn't we,
We did.
Virginia?
We did. I'll fly
Yeah.
with you anytime.
Oh, I know. It was fun. So
Mhm.
I want to really focus on exactly what people can expect in your overshadowed group. Like I know you're only into a few months under your belt by this time, but you have some good stories, and I just want to give people a little taste of what it is.
Well, I think one of my goals is to really, there's some great revelatory teaching out there right now, that's really shifting things and shifting paradigms. But what I've found, and I don't think I would have really known this as much if I wasn't working with a group of people like, earth suit to earth suit in a local, ecclesia. I don't think I would have been as aware of this problem that people have difficulty translating the concepts to real life.
Mm,
And so to show people, okay, what does this look like with skin on? And
mhm.
then the encouragement to, because when you hear something new, a lot of times you're like, yeah, it resonates, but you forget it. And, I have a degree in secondary education. And I remember one of the instructors saying people will learn, forget, and learn, forget before they finally remember. I've also heard that's maybe 7 times. I'm not sure which is true, but, our brain shreds new stuff. And so I think to have a group where you're going over, oh, I heard so and so say this, but I didn't really understand it. And to be able to dialogue, to ask questions, but also to be able to break down for people, okay, this is what this looks like practically, and this is how this would look in your life. This is how you apply it, and then let's do it. Now you have homework. So I give a little homework and I
Yeah.
say, okay, this is what you do this month to make this concept that you heard and were excited about, uh, to make it real and to understand how to work it out. And another thing that happens is that when you start doing that, things that are to the contrary, whether it's familiar patterns and cycles and beliefs or, other things that are contrary start to come to the surface. So in the framework of a group, you can hold each other accountable, you can encourage each other. You see my junk, right? But it's familiar to me, so I can't see it, but everybody else I'm sure does really well. And that's just the nature of it. So in a safe atmosphere, we can encourage and support each other, not pointing fingers or that judgy thing, but just encouragement and questions.
That's so good. And I love that you said that you give homework. And, in my boot camps and my programs, I do too. Because here's the thing, I think it's in James, where he says, don't just be hearers of the word, but be doers.
Right.
It's implementation. And from the beginning of when I started my business in 2012, I always say transformation comes from implementation. Doesn't matter what you're doing, you've got to do what you're talking about or what you hear in your head, because if you don't do it, if it doesn't make sense in real life, then it's just, it, like you said, your brain shreds it, it goes away, you know?
Yeah, it's
And
like
I
the
never want to
parable.
be shelf help.
No, 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 no. And, the parable of the seeds, right? The birds of the air, right?
Mhm,
Take those
mhm,
if we're not implementing it and helping each other, supporting each other, bringing it back to our remembrance. I just was ministering somewhere yesterday that I hadn't been for maybe a year and a half or something. And, they were like, "Oh," kind of like, "Oh, we needed to be reminded of this," because 'cause they're kind
mhm,
of in their little vein, and this doesn't contradict that, but it does go on that foundation, like, "Come on, let's live out of heaven, let's do it. Let's do it from our seat of rest in the heavenly realm instead of getting bogged down in earth stuff." And they said, "Wow, we really needed to," we had gotten in our familiar rut, we needed to be reminded. So I think in a group setting is really good to do that, and it shows up in all of us when it's like, "Oh, wow, I was thinking the way that I was used to thinking instead of the way that I'm expanding."
mhm. So, what is the format or the structure of your group? Are you teaching? Is it Q&A? Is it a combo? Do they have a like an agenda that they're a roadmap to walk through? What does it look like for yours?
Well, I'm kind of finding my way with this too because in the past when I would do groups, it would be very specific to like an addiction group or a codependency group back in the day. And
Mhm.
so this is a little more open-ended. So I'm kind of finding my flow and I'm really trying to put my finger on the pulse of what people need. So the first one I had a little more open and it felt like they were kind of not quite even you sure. So I've filled in that space a little bit, and I think as I do that for a few times, I think then the dialogue will start to come and start to flow. But I think, they didn't know each other, they weren't sure of the format. So I've kind of shifted a little bit to filling up having testimonies of breakthroughs, right, from the past, from the past class, questions, any bumps in the road, but I'll limit that time so that's not all it is. And then I'll share a little bit. We'll usually practice. We're practicing, explaining and practicing some spiritual technologies, building spiritual structures into which we make our decrees and our declarations and to practice it together. And then, usually Q&A or, something like that at the end. But I expect to be able to kind of step back a little bit and let it flow more over time.
Mhm.
I hope.
Yeah, yeah, of course. That sounds really good. So, what are people able to go back and watch the replay? Then are you putting that in the group in the forum?
I do put that in the group. Now, at
Okay.
first, I was under the impression that people couldn't see anything that before they joined the group. So I was reposting, but then a couple of people last group told me that they were able to see stuff that was posted before they got in the group.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That software and I mean, I we installed it. So yes, I know what software that is. And yes, they can see anything that you've posted in the group and it doesn't matter if it's a year ago or whatever. If it's in the group, they can get to it and find it.
Even if it was before they joined.
Yeah. So that's another reason why as a group facilitator, you want to make sure that things are as organized as possible so people can find things by topic and all of that. I know yours is just starting out, but for our audience who is thinking about doing a group, that's really good. So who is this overshadowed group for?
I think it's really for anybody, which would be everybody, but it would be for anybody that desires to birth heaven from earth. And the overshadowed goes back many, many years to an encounter that I had with the Lord in the early, early days when I first was just encountering the spirit realm, and the prophetic and all that. And just a supernatural encounter in worship, and he gave me a song, and it was from Luke. It was the song of when he overshadowed Mary, but the Lord was just it was my cry to the Lord, overshadow me. I want to be your womb on the earth. I didn't have a grid for living out of heaven or any of that. And then fast forward so a number of years later, I had another it was in worship as well, another supernatural encounter where I was writing a song and his wings came in the room overhead and gave me the download, and it had to do with being overshadowed and bringing forth life in places where death used to be. So that fits the transition that we were talking about, right? That transition
Mm,
the ages, the new thing being birthed.
uh,
It's Revelation 12, right? The Messiah coming from the womb of a woman, but also the sons being birthed from the womb of the church, right? Which is now a womb that's being dismantled in, for the bigger wineskin. And so I'm not saying God's doing away with the body of Christ, but you know what I mean, the structure. So I think it's for anybody that desires to co-create with God from heaven to earth, starting here and then moving outward. So, there's some people that really their focus is on just getting a breakthrough in their own soul or in their own family or with their children, with their businesses. There's other people that are in full-time ministry, and they're contending for cities and regions. So I think it's for all of us to learn what this looks like and to learn how to do it together.
what age group are typically in
all
there?
all ages. So it's all women so far. Now I didn't tell the men they couldn't join, but it is all females, but of all ages.
Hmm. Okay. And I know you haven't really marketed very much, but you still have a full house. So that's amazing. God's hand is on it. That is so
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Awesome. So, any other tips that you would encourage people to think about as they're coming into your group or any group?
I
Yes.
just think, just be open, right? Be open. Don't be afraid to communicate. I think one of the things that the old wineskin taught us is, you sit down, you be quiet, you do, you go into spectator mode. Literally, when years ago, I was leading worship at this church, and there was this book by the soundboard. It said How to Be a Good Sheep. That was the name of the book. And I was like, "Oh my goodness." And so part of unlearning that is, okay, let's all find our voice. This is a group. Okay, this is Virginia Killingsworth's group, so I'm going to sit and listen to her like a good sheep. And if that's where we're starting, that's okay. But I want to encourage people, okay, find your voice. And when people have questions or, have testimonies or maybe hit a brick wall, okay, what do you have to say? And to learn to flow together as a corporate, we're Americans, we're used to thinking, we're individuals, and this is something that, in ecclesias we do run into. Sometimes in our local body, it'll, will people, it'll be hard to cultivate. Okay, I can go in and have an encounter with the Lord regardless of what's going on corporately, but what is going on corporately? Is there a corporate flow? And are we even asking that question? Right? Learning to think both individually and corporately. So I would just like to, I would want to encourage people, you know, find your voice, be who you are, and then everybody's piece is important as we flow together. Sensitivity to Holy Spirit, sensitivity to each other. It's not all about me, right?
Right.
It's I'm an important piece of this equation, and you don't have to hide.
Yeah, I think that's important to understand that. I mean, if you're in crisis mode, that's probably not a great place to step in and overtake the group and make it be about you.
Right. Right. And
Yeah.
I always set time limits, So,
Right.
sometimes I'll say, okay, how many people have testimonies or questions from the, homework from since the last time? And then, okay, there are four of you, let's divide that by 15 minutes. You each have whatever, and then,
Yeah. Yeah,
gently
that's good.
enforce it so nobody feels shut down. But yet if people aren't sensitive because of the intensity of their own pain or situation, then we're just gonna, we'll help them.
Hmm. And so I think that rising to the corporate flow and finding, because typically we're in our own stuff, and the corporate flow, to me, this is the way I've experienced it, is it goes up higher. Like it's over everybody's heads in the church. There's a stream flowing, right? So everybody's in their own bubble here, and you have to kind of get up into the flow of what's the corporate flow of what God wants to do here. Any tips or tricks on how to do that, or how to, like, put out your spiritual feelers and your antenna to find that higher corporate flow? Do you know what I mean? Am I explaining it okay? I mean,
No, that's a great I'd never thought of it that way, but I think it's very accurate and very true because if I can have my own little encounter with God regardless of what's going on, it could be oppressive or whatever, but I'm one spirit with him, so I can commune with him even in the midst of all that.
right.
But I think the first thing is just having a grid, even asking the question. I don't think we've ever been taught to ask that question. What does God do? Okay, I know what God's doing with you. You're having a rough day, or you're having an awesome day, or you're on fire. You're a king on fire, Bralynn,
I
or
am.
whatever.
And so are
but
you.
but what is God doing corporately? And I
Right.
think the first thing is really just teaching people that that's even a thing. And then, okay, take the corporate temperature. And then I think the second thing would be, okay, my friend Connie says this, and I was praying about this today. We're a thermostat, not a thermometer. So then, you know,
Yeah,
so
right.
first is even, yeah. So first is even asking the question and having that thought. But then once I take the temperature, it's not like, oh, it's so oppressive in here. It's like, no, I'm a thermostat. Father, how do I change that? And then
Yeah,
we can easily do it together. Whereas if 95% of the people are oblivious and five people are going, something ain't right, you may or may not steer the ship. So I think
right.
the same is true in an in-person gathering or in a group. I think it could apply either way.
Yeah. When you said thermostat, or sorry, I'm having color issues. I don't know why my camera keeps flipping back and forth. I just need to be still. Um, but when you said that, what I was thinking was rheostat, because flipping from our soul to spirit is a rheostat. It's not like an on-off switch. To me, this is the way I've experienced it, is I can be mostly in soul, half and half, or mostly in spirit, right? And
That's
so
good. Yeah.
typically if I'm in soul at that end, it's all about me. You know what I mean? I'm just being honest. Like, it's just like
Yeah.
whatever I'm going through, what I need, I'm seeking the Lord on, I'm holding on to his tassels, I'm whatever. It's I, me. But as I flip over into spirit, then I can start seeing what he sees and seeing what's important to him, which is, if you're in a group, it's probably not all about you. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Hopefully. And
Right?
the cool thing is you can't outgive him, right? Once you get above it, then your soul is blessed. Your soul is restored. You
Right.
can't.
Right.
So it's all encompassing because when
Right.
spirit is the one, running the show, then soul gets the benefits.
Soul does get the benefits, but sometimes she doesn't know that.
Yeah, this
She
is
she
true.
still reaches over and grabs the steering wheel. I'm like, "Okay, that's it. You, backseat. No more. You can't even be in the passenger seat." Yeah, so I think that just being aware of the shift from soul to spirit will help you get into the flow of a corporate. If you're in a group and you're kind of, okay, so here's another thing. No matter where you are in the world, we can be together in spirit. So,
Mm.
yeah, it looks like we're separate on Zoom screens, but in the spirit, we could literally be all in the same room. And I think that concept we forget about because we feel so individualized, and our view outside of the Zoom screen is so different from each other. And we're concerned about this rather than coming up and meeting in a place.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's a great example of how we're learning, how the children of this world are wiser than the children of light. You got the witches and all those people doing all that stuff, right? And yet we're just now talking about this and learning to operate as spirit beings that are not confined to the limitations of our earth suit. So when we really, and their counterfeit is so small compared to what they have, right? Their soul, I mean, they don't even have a made alive in Christ spirit. Their soul can only leave their body for a short time with the help of a demonic spirit, right? And with making all these trades, right? But we are spirit beings, right? That are encased in the protective bubble of Holy Spirit. There are no limitations. We can, like the wind, right? Those that are born of the Spirit are like the wind. So, I mean, the real so far eclipses the counterfeit, which is why the enemy doesn't want us to know that there's a real, and he doesn't want us to know that it's for us. And so I think these Zoom groups are a great way. And I haven't really started doing this very much with this overshadowed group, but I have another prayer group that is very international, and we are starting to tap into these kinds of things, because we've been together longer, and it's, just it's a different focus. But
Mhm.
I think any group is really conducive to what you're saying. Okay, how do
Mhm.
we move together as a team, both for ourselves and for our nations and the nations of the earth? Or, you know,
Mhm.
topics. I remember hearing Ian Clayton say one time, he was talking about Fukushima. He goes, "The earth, man, humanity has no answer for this. The sons are going to have to step up and answer this." So, situations like that that seem like earthly catch-22s, I think little groups and pockets of us can rise up and go, "Hey, let's go do this."
Yeah. Have you heard of the telepathy tapes? It's
No.
kind of a thing that's going around. Yeah. So these parents of autistic children finally found out that the autistic children are literally meeting together in the spirit, and they're having conversations, and they're doing all of these things. And it's yeah, and so it's they're called they're the nonverbal, non-talker autistic kids, and there's this board that they can start using to help them speak and tell people what's on their mind. And for so many years, the parents have been told by the doctors and by the medical system that they're not really home. There's no one there. You can love on them, you can do this, but they're not really, there. But that's totally not true. They are there. They're very aware. They're very creative. They're very brilliant. They put pieces together and puzzles together, just not in the way that we do it, because they're not doing it in the physical world. They're doing it in the spirit realm. And so to the scientific world, this is like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And to all of us who've been doing it for years, we're like, yeah, hello.
That's so good. I've not heard of that, but wow. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
Don't you
cool
love
thing.
what Dr. Aiko Horman says? She says science is finally catching up with the Bible,
Right,
right?
right, right,
This is a
exactly.
perfect example of that.
Yes, yes, exactly. So I've watched a couple interviews. They have a podcast literally called Telepathy Tapes, but then also one of the founders or the doctor, or I don't know who the guy was, connected to it somehow, was on other people's podcasts that I was in, they're the ones that I follow. And so that's how I got hooked up to this. And yeah, it was like it just like you sit there, you're gripping your seat and going, ah, I just want to say something, because don't you know this? The people in church need to hear this. They need to know that we can do this. We can meet in the spirit, that the Lord designed us this way. That is a communication tool for us to do. And
Yeah. So what
yeah.
if groups are just like kindergarten of that, right? It's just him
Exactly.
going, okay, first in the natural, then in the spirit. If you can do this using a Zoom screen, then hey, how about if
Yeah.
without that? Or,
Yeah.
maybe that's what he's doing, or one of the things that he's doing, even
Yeah.
besides just the personal benefits of it.
I think my audience may have heard this, but I don't know if I ever shared this with you, Virginia. Is I We used to do that. We used to practice. This was probably 2020 timeframe ish. We had an ecclesia group who met. We met at 8:30. We met in the spiritual room, in our war room, and we would give each other something, or tell something, or just watch what goes on. And then at 9 o'clock we would get on Zoom and say, did you get what I gave you, or did you hear what I said? We would practice these things.
I
And
love it. And how
yeah.
was it pretty?
It
Was it
was
pretty cohesive?
well, it's hard when you're first starting out, and I think that we had some not really good seers.
Mm.
So we were doing the absolute best we can. But here's a cool story that did come out of it. I was in my 8:30 time in the spirit, and I saw one of the girls in the group under the table. And I'm like, what is she doing under the table? And I'm looking down, I'm like, she's just sitting there cross-legged under the table. And I couldn't tell what she was doing. Well, so anyway, at 9 o'clock, when we were saying, okay, what did you see? What did she? And she's like, I don't know. It just felt like there was something over my head. It was dark, and all I could see were these vertical lines all around me.
That is so cool. I love
I
that.
know.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah, that was pretty hilarious. So I wish I had a group that were dedicated, because here's the thing. You can't just do this for a couple months. This is something you have to be committed to working on and practicing over the long haul. And you can't just say, yeah, not this week, I'm too busy, or,
Yep.
miss it, and, all of that stuff. You've got to be committed, because it really takes practice, because it's so outside of our normal 3D realm, obviously, literally out of our 3D realm, that we have to commit to practicing. So I have not found another group to do it with, but I'd be interested. That would be fun.
Well, I do think, and we've experienced that both with our now with our the other group, not the overshadow group, the other group is early in the morning, and so there tends to be not as much, "Oh, I'm busy, I can't do it," as our local, but just consistency is just like it's just herding cats. And I thought when I first, when we first started, I thought maybe it's like a local thing, maybe it's something in the area, whatever. But I've been talking to other people and they're like, "No, it's across the board." And I think it's what the enemy is doing to fragment and cause us to be distracted and disconnected. And it's the tyranny of the urgent, right? The good, where we can't commit to one thing. Where we've got overwhelmed because we want to do everything. We got FOMO and all this stuff, ego
Right, right.
and all these things. So we're not doing any of them well, and we're not really committed. So I think that's really one of the things that the adversary is doing in the infancy of this movement is just to scatter and
Yep.
fragment and
Keeping us
divide,
distracted. Absolutely.
distracted with the good.
Yeah, yeah,
Should have really
exactly.
focused on the hundredfold.
Right. And, since this is spirit-centered business, in the business world and in my industry, the gurus would say that's why you price things high. That's why, because if people are paying for it, they'll show up,
Oh, that's
you
good.
know. Which is true. I mean, if I'm paying a lot for something, I'm not going to just miss it, right?
Right. It's
But
gonna be priority, and it's gonna
exactly.
attract the people that can make it priority.
Exactly. And so it's the opposite of what the church is. The church is like, just going to give everything free, or how much can I get for free, or what can I do for free? What's not going to cost me too much? What are they not going to expect me to make too much of a commitment?
Right?
What's the littlest I can do? And it's the opposite of the kingdom, you know,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely. That's really good. I
yeah.
mean, I've had a grid for, okay, when people need to sew in, right? But
Mhm.
I hadn't connected it with the priority piece.
Yeah, it's the treasure verse in the Bible, where your heart lies, your treasure is, or the opposite way around, where
Mhm.
your treasure is, your heart lies. It's the same thing. Like if your treasure is there, your heart will be there. You
Right,
know?
right. So
Yeah.
it's okay, I'm gonna buy, 50 pieces of candy or one, you know,
Right.
steak
Or I'm
or
gonna go
whatever.
to Starbucks and get a latte every day, but for that $4 a day times 30 days a month, for $120, I could join this program and do something that's eternal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really
people just
good.
don't think that
Mm,
way.
mm, that's so
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Well, translating, I wrote down two different things. Translating the concepts into real life, which I, so critical. And I think that the church doesn't serve that well, and
Mhm,
that's probably why they're coming to us as outliers,
mhm.
to
Yeah.
be taught on how to make that translation. You have any
Mhm.
more thoughts on that concept?
Yeah, I do. One of the things the Lord He's really been speaking to me a lot about the four faces of God, lion, ox, eagle, man. And lion's the kingly, the ox is the priestly, the eagle is the word, and the man is the word made flesh. And so, I'm actually going to be breaking this down a little bit for my group tonight. But the kingly and the priestly, it's the order of Melchizedek, right? It's not the Levitical priesthood. It's a heavenly priesthood.
Right.
Jesus made us kings and priests after his order, which is order of Melchizedek. So
Yes.
we legislate and we overshadow from the heavenly realm, but it manifests in the earth, right? And then the word and the word made flesh, which is doing the works of the kingdom, are primarily earthly, but they have their sourcing in heaven. And so I know for me, and this is probably true for most of us, in past seasons, I grew up Baptist, so I knew about doing the stuff, you do all the stuff, but it wasn't sourced in heaven, right? I wasn't doing what I saw the Father doing because I thought he stopped speaking a long time ago, right? And I didn't know I was seated there. So I was doing a lot of really good stuff and did not have very much fruit at all, just on that religious hamster wheel. And then you have, like we just talked about, we have those a lot of people that are living out of the heavenly realm, but I think people are having trouble understanding how that connects. So one of the things I'm really going to be working with my group on is the connecting of the four faces, how to operate in the kingly and the priestly, and how does that manifest in the earth through the word and the word made flesh.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
That'd be
because
great.
they have to go together in order. Jesus was the lamb slain from before the foundation of the world, but in the fullness of time, he wrapped himself in human flesh. He came and did what God called him to do in the earth realm. So I think it's timely for where I think where we are in this movement. And I believe it is a movement, right? It's an awakening. It's a movement.
Mhm, mhm,
It's the beginning of a wineskin, and I think it's a timely message for where we are.
mhm. Yeah, I think you might have an old video, either on All Things Restored YouTube channel or on your own somewhere, because I saw some of that, your teaching on that when I didn't really know what it was at all. I'm like, let's see if Virginia taught something, because whatever Virginia teaches is good. So it was really good. But about 2 months ago, I actually got a word, and it turned out to be a word for not only for myself, but for another person. And then I kind of told it a little bit wider. And so it was kind of like a little bit of my stream of influence word. And it was about being the ox, having the putting on the ox face, because the ox, you're not muzzling the ox gets fed, and all it needs to do is keep stepping. The Lord is right here yoked, and you just have to face forward and keep stepping forward. And what the Lord showed me was that the yoke that was across my shoulders and the Lord's shoulders, on his side it was this heavy big timber beam, right? On my side it was a big piece of styrofoam painted to look like a heavy timber beam.
I love it. Oh, that's
Yeah,
so perfect. And
I
that
know, it was
yeah,
great.
that
And
is
all
how
I
it
need to
is,
do,
right?
yeah, yeah. All you need to do is just know that he's right here and just keep stepping forward and just make sure you're right here with him and step forward.
They'll keep living as a dead guy, right? Let him wear you like skin, right? He's doing the hard work.
Yeah, yeah, it was so
That's
good.
such a good picture, Berlin, and that's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to being able to join the group. It's on Wednesday nights, and I have some Bible studies going on Wednesday nights. But I think we're taking off for the summer, so I might be able to join you guys for the summer. That'll be good.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah. So again, the group is called Overshadowed, and you can find it on virginiakillingsworth.com, and it's part of do you want me to say it or do you wanna say it? Do you have more to say than about the
Oh,
3 tiers and
no, no, that's you
okay,
got it.
alright. Okay, so it's part of her 3-tiered mentoring, and the first tier is, I she's a terrific client, so this is why I know this inside and out is because I've been coaching.
'Cause there would be no class or anything without Berlin. There would
I'm like, "Why is she telling the story about someone else?" Like, "No, it's because I know it."
oh, yeah.
It's the first tier is a DIY, do it yourself. It's the Her Miracles Made Normal book and the online course, which is absolutely terrific, you guys. And I think we talked about this way back in episode 148 and 49, way back when the book first came out. Let me tell you guys, I got my hands on that book and I'm like, ooh, someone needs to teach this. And then I got about halfway through, I'm like, I need to teach this. And I'm like, Virginia, can I teach this? And she goes, I'm teaching this. I'm like, okay, good. At least someone is. So she has an online course, which is absolutely phenomenal, all about co-creating with God. And so that is the first tier. And then the second tier is this group that we've been talking about, Overshadowed. So it would be helpful to have read the book or gone through the online course, but you don't have to. But this is an interactive live group that you can chat to each other during between meetings, and then obviously meet live and have her do the teaching and Q&A and challenges and things like that that are going on. Testimonies from the time before, all of that kind of stuff is the live. And the third tier is coming soon. We'll talk about that. We'll have you back on the show and we can talk about the third tier. How about that?
You know, I love to any excuse to hang out with you, Berlin.
Oh, I know. We have good conversations. I love it. Yeah, so we did cover a lot of ground today. We talked about accessing that corporate flow as well when you're in a group. I think it's so important for us to tune our spiritual senses, get our rheostat more over into spirit. And like Connie says, you're a thermostat and not a thermometer.
Mhm.
You do set the temperature of how much interaction you're going to do. And I think that's important. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's part of kingship, you know,
Mm.
and I would, and I'm still growing in this, but I'm getting a little better. I would do great, like leading worship or whatever if it was wide open. It's like, wow, this is fun. But if there was something going on, I wouldn't always be able to discern or see what it was or know what to do about it or have the oomph to press through it. And that's kingship. And so, that was I'm I always love to just flow with the spirit and that part's easy, but that dominion and that authority is something God's having to work in me, both just in my own kingship, but also, in the wisdom of understanding, okay, this is how this works and just teaching learned this is just recent. I've learned, when I'm preparing for like worship or teaching or something like that, if I have trouble, like during, like maybe during the week when I'm praying about it or when I'm prepping, that I've noticed a pattern that, oh, it's always a struggle. And that's my clue. I've got to get breakthrough beforehand. And the Lord was reminding me about a Daniel Nash who always went before Charles Finney in the Second Great Awakening and prayed and travailed until the breakthrough came. And then Finney would go do his meetings. And it was
Oh.
so crucial that Finney, after Daniel Nash died, he stopped doing itinerant ministry and just took a pastorate in like 3 or 4 months because it was without that going before to open it up in prayer it was, he couldn't do it. And so I think the Holy Spirit's teaching me about that. So that's my thought with that corporate flow is
Mhm.
okay, part of being a thermostat is popping out in time, right? We're not limited by time. I can go into Sunday right now and I can take, I can, whatever,
Yep.
take the temperature and go, okay, there's a void here in the spirit. I need to fill it. There's something withstanding. There's something unclean. I need to deal with it. And we get to do that. This is kingship. So I'm kind of learning about that and practicing and sometimes getting it right, sometimes going, ah, better luck next time, you know?
Right. That is so good. And that's a really good word for somebody to even Virginia has been doing this way longer than I have, and I've been doing it for, oh, wow, 11 years now. And even we hit walls and can't get where we think we're going or
Mhm.
can't, experience everything that we think that we should be able to, or, can't get a breakthrough or whatever it is. So it's always is your heart in a position of pressing? I'm going to press, and regardless of the outcome, God still loves me. I'm still okay. All of those things. Or does it start degrading your value in God's eyes, or his ability, or his willingness, or you know those are the kinds of things that come and start pitting, and like acid rain on metal, it starts deteriorating, right? Those are the things that we have to keep our armor on and remember. God just might be speaking in a different way. It's the process that shapes us and forms us and helps us as much as the getting that done, the whatever we're pressing forward to, the focus is. So
That's
it's,
so good how he uses that to reveal
yeah.
orphan or shame-based identity in us,
Hmm.
right? And so if
Right.
that's what it accomplishes, then he works all things together for our good, right? And
Yeah.
it's always an honor to worship and minister to him and to others. I mean, when we do it from the heart, even though it doesn't feel, we don't get the good feelings, then that's the highest trade. But at the same time, if there's something I that I need to learn in my growth, then, I wanna learn it too. So, I'll let it reveal what it needs to reveal in my identity that needs to shift. I'll take the opportunity to minister to him because he's worthy, and it's a higher trade because I didn't get any feel goods from it, right? And that's a purification. But, Father, I want to learn your ways. I want to mature and grow so that we can hit the mark every time.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And Virginia is the worship leader for All Things Restored. And do you teach as well, or is it mostly? Yeah, I know you teach some, but most is it's you split it between the other people, right?
Yeah. We
Yeah.
rotate.
Yeah. So it's such a blessing when the person who is worshiping is also teaching. I happen to belong to a church where their the one of the pastors is also the worship leader. And so he sees in the spirit, and he knows what's going on, and he knows where he's going with his sermon, and he can pray us right into the dimension that we need to be in, or he can get us all worshiping up into that dimension, so that when he does release the word, we're all ready, we're all prepped, all primed, already there. And a lot of people don't have that ability. They're three fast ones, two slow ones, and then open it up, and then someone else walks up and takes the stage and takes the microphone, and it's just not the same. It's
No.
not the same.
And it
Yeah.
goes back to that corporate flow that we talked about earlier,
Right,
just learning
right.
how to move as a body. Lord, what are
Mhm.
you doing with all of us instead of each of our individual pieces?
Yeah, yeah.
And I've tasted of that to an extreme, and boy, it's so effective in the spirit when you can move as a corporate body with each other and with the Lord. Wow, there's nothing like it.
It's true. Yeah, that's true. So if you're local in Jacksonville, Florida, you can go visit All Things Restored, and you can go to that website and check that out and see Virginia in person. Otherwise, go to virginiakillingsworth.com to collect anything you want. She has books and CDs, and then of course the program that we talked about, the mentorship program, Miracles Are Normal course, or the Overshadowed. Do avail yourselves of that, because it's sitting under her teaching is such a blessing. So you'll love it. All right. Well, I think we need to land this plane. Thank you so much again, Virginia. This has been another great conversation. I love you, dear one.
I love you. It's always such a joy to talk about him with you and just hang out. Any excuse to hang out with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I might have to have you teach again. She joined me in quantum capacity. I might have to have her in Kings on Fire. We'll see.
That was
All right, you guys. Until next time, stay spirit centered. Peace out.
Hey there, SCB peeps. I want to give a huge shout out and deep appreciation and thanks to Candace Benton. She has become a super sponsor for the Spirit Centered Business Show. So I would appreciate you helping me in sending blessings and abundance back to her. Thank you so much, Candace, and you are well loved.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Centered Business with Bralynn Newby. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. The next stage of doing business by being spirit-centered is coming together in collaboration, working with spiritual principles and knowing our destiny. Join our tribe at spiritcenteredbusiness.com, and we'll catch you on the next broadcast. Peace out.